Hello and good morning. Welcome to this Monday morning mobility. I'm Jeff Blanchard and I'm back to offer a little bit of help from a physical therapist perspective. It's my passion to help people improve their quality of life by decreasing pain and improving movement and mobility. Today's topic is arthritis. So last week we spoke a little bit about imaging and how this relates to oftentimes where we see arthritis. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about how arthritis is a normal thing. So arthritis is just kind of one of those words that nobody wants to hear about when they come in for physical therapy. And they're like, oh my gosh, I have arthritis. That means that I must be getting really old. And sometimes they talk about arthritis a little bit like a disease or cancer, like it's going to spread around my body. So I'll talk about, let's say somebody comes in for knee pain and we go through some tests in the clinic, and I might say, well, a lot of your signs and symptoms look like you've got arthritis in your knee. And then they're like, oh, well, that makes sense because I've got arthritis in my fingers. So if I have arthritis in my fingers, that must mean I have arthritis in my knee because it spreads around. Actually, all arthritis is, at least osteoarthritis, we're talking about osteo. There are different kinds of arthritis, but osteoarthritis, which is basically just breakdown of the joint and joint surfaces, which happens in all of us as long as we live long enough. If we live long enough, our joints will start to break down because we live in gravity. So now gravity is an important thing, and it actually helps our bodies be strong. So our muscles help us be able to move around in gravity versus in water. Muscles help us move in water as well, but there's no compression in water. So if we all lived in water, we'd probably not get any arthritis. So let's say, for example, the knee. Last week we talked more about the spine. So as far as the knee goes, there's a lot of pressure that goes through that knee joint. Okay, so here's an example of a knee joint. As you're seeing from the front. So you can see that we've got the kneecap on the top. The kneecap sits right on top of the femur. It kind of floats on the femur in this tendon attached to the top of your leg or your quadriceps, which is here, and attaches to this bone. So we've got cartilage under that kneecap. Now we also have cartilage right here on this bone, which is called the femur. And if we open the knee up here, we also have these guys. This is a meniscus. So you have a meniscus on this side and a meniscus on that side. So you have two in each knee. And the meniscus is also made out of cartilage. This cartilage is very specialized. It's very impervious to compression. Actually, compression helps cartilage stay healthy. So it's kind of like a giant shock absorber in your knee or elsewhere in your body. So with time and wear, especially with what we call shear force, which is this, okay, that tends to break cartilage down. So compressive forces make cartilage more healthy. Shear forces make cartilage actually more stressed out. If you have really good muscle strength around the joint, you can minimize how much of this lateral shear you experience, which is precisely why I tell people to avoid arthritis, you want to continue to exercise and keep strong and have proper mechanics. If you have good mechanics and good strength, you're going to minimize your shear force, and thus you're going to slow the arthritis process that does occur in all of us. So if we were to look at a knee with arthritis, we would see that the meniscus shrinks down, gets thinner. Then there's also the cartilage on the bone. The cartilage on the bone will thin out. Sometimes we'll get little holes or spots where then it's just bone, and you've heard the term bone on bone. That means that this bone is touching that bone and there's no cartilage between the two bones, and that's not a happy situation because that becomes painful. Cartilage is a tissue that typically does not have pain receptors in it. And so you can compress cartilage and jump up and down on cartilage and there's no pain. But once you wear through that cartilage and you start getting to bone, bone has lots and lots of pain receptors in it. So if you get a bone-on-bone scenario without the cartilage, now you got pain receptors on pain receptors, and that's a problem. And that's going to cause inflammation. So some of the signs of arthritis is you start to have general pain in the joint, sometimes warmth in the area. It's kind of a deep achy pain. It's painful if you sit too long and you don't move, or it's painful if you do too much. If you move it gently, then it helps to loosen it up and actually feels better. So people, when they wake up in the morning, oftentimes they complain that they're kind of stiff and sore in the morning because they're having some of that arthritis pain. Or if they do too much, then they start to feel it. Another symptom of arthritis is your joint doesn't move as well. So what I'll see is the knee should be able to bend to 140, 150 degrees in this bend. Well, people come in and it only bends to here, and that's as far as it's bending, and I notice it's kind of swollen. Those are some of the signs and symptoms of arthritis. If you keep your flexibility in your joints, and every day you move those joints through the range of motion, that's another way that you keep arthritis away. You slow down the process because you're moving those joints through the full range of motion, and you're circulating the fluid that's inside the joints. That's synovial fluid. You circulate that fluid to all the surfaces of the joint. That keeps the cartilage healthy. But if you only bend your knee this far every day because you're sitting in chairs and you don't fully squat, you don't do squats, and you don't do things that bend your knee all the way, well, then eventually you lose the ability to bend all the way, and that actually opens the door for faster occurrence of arthritis. Your cartilage will start to break down faster, your bone will start to break down faster. Another change that we see in arthritis is we see bone spurs. So if you see the edge of the bone here, initially it's nice and kind of contoured and kind of rounded. Well, eventually this edge starts getting more and more edgy because there's bone that starts to form along here. So when the joint gets, all that shear happens and trauma starts to occur to the joint surface, then the body responds to that trauma by laying down more bone. And so then we end up getting those changes, and then you bump into those bone spurs a little sooner, and that creates pain because that's a bone-on-bone scenario. Okay, so also another symptom of arthritis is that the joint might start making more noise. Now, oftentimes people will come in and they'll be concerned that their knee is crackling or popping, like going up and down stairs or moving around. It's like my knee pops and cracks. So that's actually pretty normal. That is a sign of a little bit of wear, but it's usually not a concerning thing. There's a different quality to different joint noises. Sometimes the joint noise is more kind of crackly and a little pop here and there, and sometimes it's a little bit kind of a deeper noise. So I can typically discern by what it sounds like to know that if it's just cartilage, moving on cartilage, and it's pretty normal, or if we're starting to get a little bit more of that bone-on-bone noise, because sometimes that will cause noise as well. And sometimes noise is just caused by just a tendon moving over the bone, and it's no big deal. So most often joint noises aren't a big deal, but if you have a concern about that, you can always ask your doctor or ask your physical therapist. So thanks again for joining me for this Monday morning mobility. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Or leave me a review. If there's something that you're interested in hearing about, please let me know. I'm happy to talk about different things as long as I know about those things. So until next time, choose movement over being sedentary because motion is lotion.